Right now, there are many people protesting their state lockdown orders. The media responds by smearing these people as right-wing crazies. They say Donald Trump's dangerous incitement to violence. Oh, everyone's got to stay locked down. Are you nuts? Here's the funny thing. As soon as they have the opportunity, as soon as these media people think it's safe, they go full fascist. And I don't use that word lightly because, they like to say, oh, Donald Trump is a fascist and all his supporters are fascists. All right, let me ask you a question. If one guy is tweeting liberation, we must go out, we must get back to work, the people should not be restrained, is that fascist or is that libertarian? What if the people started saying, no, the government has the authority to lock you down? What if they started snitching on you? What if they started writing notes saying you can't have visitors? There have been numerous stories of people calling the cops on neighbors having get-togethers. And then you have the press saying, oh, harumph, Donald Trump is wrong. Look at this story from TechCrunch. Trump's hype for state lockdown protest puts Twitter and Facebook's new COVID-19 policies to the test. That's right. There are several people, and I'm not entirely sure if this is, they got suspended, they got banned from Twitter. I'm not entirely sure why, so I'm not going to name who they are. But one of the rumors going around is that these high-profile figures on the right were banned because they were tweeting about or supporting protests of the lockdown order. Here's what the media won't tell you. First, all of these people writing these stories saying, no, the lockdown is good. They're at work. You know what that means? It means that they're getting paid. Do they feel the same panic and distress as the person who's been out of work for a month? Do they feel the same panic and distress as the 22 million people who have lost their jobs or the people who are lining up at food banks? The answer is no. Oh, and I got a great example. See, I tweeted about this. I said, you got to understand all of these writers. If they write a story saying don't reopen the economy or whatever, Trump is wrong, you realize they're getting paid to write that. They're at work, probably working from home, getting food delivered, not realizing what's really going on in the rest of the country. Sure enough, I get a bunch of journalists being like, nuh-uh, I'm at work and I'm worried. It's like, oh, so you're not panicking and in distress? You're at work, you're worried. Of course you're worried you might lose your job. There's a big difference between might lose your job and lost your job, right? One includes you having money. The other includes you not having money. You see how this works. But all of a sudden we can see just how many fascists really work in media. It's amazing. I'm going to show you something. The social lockdowns failed. All right. I don't necessarily believe that the 100% of the reason why these governors now want to reopen things is because it's time. People got to get back to work. I think it's because they realized they couldn't stop it. They were losing control and they said the best thing we can do is ease up on this because if we do nothing, we will lose total control and everyone will just go out anyway. And then no one will listen to us. Guess what? That's what's happening. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to TechCrunch here, but also The Intercept. Here's what Robert Mackey, I normally like The Intercept. He writes, if Trump thinks it's safe for his followers to gather at protests, why won't he attend one? Because the president doesn't go to protests, I guess. I mean, interestingly, I'm not sure Barack Obama went to any major rallies or protests or anything like that. But Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure he's spoken at some rallies, or at least Mike Pence has. And there have been some historic moments in rallying, I guess. But that's besides the point. Why would Donald Trump go to a protest? Donald Trump's advocating for the reopening of the economy and things like that. Why would the president be on the ground protesting? That's the stupidest question I've ever heard. All right. Look at this guy, Theo Keith. He says, pandemonium outside the Minnesota governor's residence. Horns are blaring. A few hundred people are here. Many chant, open up. They try and make it seem like it's all about just right wingers. Wrong. Let me show you. Florida beach is crowded within 30 minutes of reopening at 5 p.m. Oh, man. Uh-oh. I can't imagine working in a press industry that is so wrong all the time. Like, how at a certain point, don't you get tired of being wrong? Same thing with the Democrats. They're like, nobody wants to go back to work. They're scared. All these polls are coming out where they're like, Trump is wrong. People don't want the lockdowns lifted. They're scared. They don't want to catch this. Yeah. And then what happens when Florida's like, we're opening the beach? It's crowded with thousands of people within 30 minutes. Look at this. As soon as the state was like, oh, by the way, we're opening the beach, everybody was like, I'm there, baby. So what about your polls? The polls where everyone's like, no, don't open the economy, Trump. We don't want this. I don't buy it. You know why? Take a look at this tweet from Pete Wilgerin of LA. He's a managing editor of Fox LA. He says the mayor of LA was just asked about traffic already creeping back into Los Angeles. He's urging people to be safer at home. Here are 3 of my morning commutes this week, hitting the brakes each day on the 10 freeway. Guess what? Everybody was going out in defiance of the lockdown order. So who's right? You know, it's possible that most people don't want the economy reopened, and we're just seeing the fraction of people who don't care anymore. But I also think it's important to point out that at a certain point, no one listened anymore. And they're like, we're going out anyway. Ain't nothing you can do to stop us. The smartest thing then isn't just to start mass arresting people. You couldn't do it if you tried. You can prove your illegitimacy by maintaining no one go outside. But sir, everyone's outside anyway. Well, you don't go outside. I don't think you can do anything to stop me. That's what's happening. So perhaps Trump is right. Perhaps he's wrong. But people are flooding to the streets regardless of whether or not these lockdowns are happening. But the media, look, you do a Google search and you'll find all of these lefty sites dragging these protesters and insulting them. Thousands of Americans answer Trump's call to liberate states from governor's stringent coronavirus lockdowns with mass protest as Floridans flood beaches the minute they are partially reopened. Those beachgoers are not protesting anything. They're just going to the beach, man. So the people who came out and protested are the people who want to defend the Constitution. It's kind of funny. How many people on the left have called you, have called me, have called the president a fascist? All these media people I see on Twitter saying things like, we got to stay locked down. You can't go out. These protesters are wrong. Trump is wrong. The government doesn't have the right, because of the Constitution, to tell you you can't assemble, you can't worship, you can't speak. Freedom of the press even. If I want to go out and do my thing, can't stop me. So who are these people in media now coming out saying they can or they should? I guess they're fascists, right? Take a look at this tweet I put out. It's a Twitter thread I want to read for you. I said the people on Twitter and in media saying not to open the economy have mostly kept their jobs and aren't panicking. Regular Americans who mostly don't use Twitter are in miles-long food lines, stressed and desperate. This disconnect is the easiest way to understand why the media is often so wrong. They have isolated themselves from the rest of the country and can't see it. Remember this when you read any story from a news outlet saying not to reopen the economy. The people still writing are at work and don't feel the pressure. Maybe with the media furloughs and the layoffs, we will see opinion change. Now, I believe I am correct, but let me add something to that. The people who are saying not to reopen the economy and the people who are trashing the protesters who want the economy reopened are in that same boat. They are people with jobs. In fact, at some of these protests, like the one in Raleigh where the woman was arrested, there were journalists all around her filming, and no one said anything to the journalists. Oh, because journalism is an essential activity, but protesting isn't. That's what the cops said. So all these journalists are working, filming this protester as she gets arrested, demanding the economy be reopened. Now, of course, many of these narcissistic media people couldn't help but chime in. One guy even blocked me. It was funny. I don't know if I can actually pull it up because he did. Here we go. So see how it says this tweet is unavailable? And my response was LOL. This guy actually blocked me because of what I tweeted. He responded with something like, I work in the media and, I disagree or whatever. I don't know what he wrote. He blocked me, but it was something like that. So I put LOL. Oh, no, I remember what he said. He accused me of being part of the media. I think it's really funny. Let me give you some advice, guys. When you see Genki Ogre of the Young Turks and he tweets that Trump is inciting violence by saying liberate, when you see people in media saying things like don't protest and these people are, dangerous and all that stuff, remember, they have money. But more importantly, don't listen to people like Genki Ogre, who's a millionaire. He's got nothing to worry about. And you don't even have to listen to me because I am also well off and still working. But I think it's fair that I point out, not that I'm saying what you should or shouldn't do. Let me show you something with this tweet. This guy got all mad and accused me. He said he said something like it's rich coming from somebody who's a member of the media themselves. It's like, yes, I am absolutely a part of this media industry. Now, I don't work for a major corporation. I'm an independent podcaster and political commentator and journalist, whatever you want to call me. But listen, look what I tweeted. I didn't say you should or should not go outside. I didn't say you should or should not protest. I didn't say the economy should be reopened. I said, look at the perspective and the bias. You have people who are out of work, who are not on Twitter. That's a fact. 80% or plus 82% or whatever, or some ridiculous. No, I think it's 78%. Don't use Twitter. And of that 22 that does, only 2% are frequent tweeters. Everybody else barely tweets anything. So what you're hearing from is a fringe faction of individuals who still are working. I did not say they were right or wrong. I am saying, remember that. They are likely not feeling the pressure. They have jobs. And sure enough, I get all of these angry media people being like, hey man, that's not fair. Oh, Tim, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. Dude actually blocked me. Yes, I am a member of the media. I get to work from home. I still get paid. That's why I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should be happy or sad about what's going on. I don't know. I'm not lining up at a food bank to get food. I'll tell you what, though, there are people who are. The lines stretch miles long. There's 22 million people out of work. And if the economy doesn't restart, then more people will suffer. Andrew Cuomo said it. And of course, Dr. Phil said it, but guess who got dragged for it? Well, Dr. Phil went on Fox News, so they tore him apart. Andrew Cuomo is America's president, says Alyssa Milano. So they ignore it when he says it. We are seeing many governors now trying to get to start the process of reopening the economy. New York is doing it. I'm not even advocating for that. I'm simply telling you that these people have jobs. And so you know what their bias is going to be? They're going to be sitting in their apartment in New York City. They're going to be ordering takeout off Grubhub. And they're going to be sitting there saying, like, things aren't so bad. People shouldn't be protesting. Who are these protesters? Maybe the protesters are people whose company shut down and they had to lay off a bunch of their employees. Maybe the protesters are some of those employees who lost their jobs. Maybe the protesters are people who still have the opportunity to work, but have seen their friends and family impacted by this. Maybe it's a regular person whose job wasn't impacted, but they saw in the news that 22 million people are unemployed and they're worried what comes next. So I tweeted, here's another tweet. I'm sorry, that's just my LOL. This guy, Matt Baker, responded and perfectly exemplified everything I said. They just don't get it, man. I'll tell you what. I would recommend not listening to anybody. Don't listen to me. I mean, what I mean by that is, like, listen to what people have to say, but decide for yourself whether they're right or wrong. Don't just blindly trust anybody. And that includes me, because I'm sure there's a ton of stuff I don't get either. But look at what I said. All right. I think what I said was fairly apt and non-offensive. Wasn't supposed to offend anybody. I was pointing out that people who are working are the articles you're seeing are being written by people who have a paycheck. Here's what this guy, Matt Baker, said. So Matt Baker, I believe, he is a college football reporter for the Tampa Bay Times. Well, here's the struggle with Matt. There's no sports right now. So I don't know what he's going to be writing about. So he's probably feeling some pressure. Take a look at what he said. In response to my tweet, he said, "Hi, media person here. Some of my colleagues here have been furloughed. My colleagues at other news outlets are being furloughed. Our 10% pay cut went into effect a few weeks ago. And what happens in the coming weeks keeps me awake at night. Just thought you should know. Thank you, Matt, for perfectly exemplifying everything I said." I find it kind of funny. Listen, what did he respond to? I said, maybe with the media furloughs and layoffs, we will see opinion change. And what does he respond with? Just thought you should know that my colleagues are being furloughed and we're getting pay cuts. Yes. And now you're telling me that it's keeping you awake at night? Right. I literally said maybe that's what we will see. As more and more journalists lose their jobs, we will see opinions change. That was the point. Bravo, sir. You figured it out. See, Vox.com furloughed like 100 people. Media companies are starting to hurt, but they weren't the first in line when jobs started shutting down. The service industry was. So it's no surprise that we still, to this day, see journalists advocating for things to stay locked down. And we do, because those people aren't scared. Maybe you can be scared peripherally, or, like, oh no, my friend lost their job. What will they do? Oh, I got a pay cut. A 10% pay cut compared to someone who a month and a half ago was fired from their job, was laid off, and is now standing in a food bank wondering whether or not they're going to eat. You see the difference, but here? Somebody actually responded to this guy. I don't know if I have the tweet pulled up. Let me show you some of the responses. This guy, Lawrence, says 22 million Americans lost their job, and this bright guy has to make sure that we all know his pay was cut by 10%. Dear sir, should I send you the definition of disconnect? There is a 90% difference between you and 22 millions. I am sure you sleep just fine. He responded, with all due respect, you missed my point. My best friend's dad was laid off. Another good friend's mom was laid off. I fear for my job. Just because I haven't been laid off yet doesn't mean I won't be. I'm grateful for what I have, but it's foolish to think I don't understand. You don't. I literally tweeted that as the media gets laid off and sees furloughs, their opinions will start changing. And what does he say? He's a media person. His friends are getting furloughed and laid off. He got a pay cut. Now he's starting to get worried. You see how it works, right? When the industry was isolated for quite some time, people were fine with things. They were like, maybe it's the right thing to do. Now everything's falling apart around them and they're like, oh no, now I fear for my job. Yes, that's quite literally the point. So let me show you what the media does. All right, I'm just going for this because while I talk about the media and the protests and the lockdown, it's not just about these journalists who are saying you shouldn't lock things down. It's about the exploitation of companies like CNN. Now, it is true that I have brought this subject up quite a bit. It needs to be brought up 100%. Because while you have these journalists who are, many of them unaffected, now starting to get affected and starting to get scared, you have people at CNN outright lying about what's going on. There was a tweet. I don't know if I have it pulled up. CNN is still pretending Cuomo is isolated or quarantined. So people are actually asking like, whoa, wait, what happened? Here's Oliver Darcy of CNN. He's sitting here in this, whatever this is at home thing. Oh, there's Cuomo in his basement again. And of course, Oliver's complaining about Fox News. Haha, it's so funny. Is that all you got, dude? I can rag on all of the media companies and all these journalists, and the only thing you ever do is complain about Fox News. Right. Well, anyway, you can see Chris Cuomo in his basement. But as most of us now know, Chris Cuomo is lying. CNN is lying. He is not isolated. He is not quarantined. We have this story. Cuomo said, I'm scared by this. I can't get out of the basement, he said Monday. Yeah, except he was seen with two women, 3 kids playing around on a property with no structure. It was a property they owned where they were building something. So they weren't at someone's house. They weren't at a restaurant. They were out in public. Some dude saw him. Some guy on his bike said, is that Chris Cuomo? Isn't he supposed to be quarantined? No, he wasn't. The reason why I'm showing you this in this context is, for one, I love to point out how much the media lies. It's all they do. Yet you have all of these journalists arguing that we should remain locked down. You have CNN saying, Dr. Drew, Dr. Oz, and Dr. Phil blasted for COVID comments. And they put Dr. Phil in quotation marks. Dr. Phil has a PhD. Like, that makes him a doctor. I don't know why they put him in quotes. They're ragging on these people for saying that we need to reopen things. Isn't it funny that CNN is riding up on a high horse saying like, these people, Dr. Phil, they can't say we got to open the economy? Guess who's not locked down? Chris Cuomo. He's talking about how he's sick and he's got a fever and he's got the coronavirus and he's complained about these people who want to reopen the economy. And then he goes out with his family in full defiance of the coronavirus lockdown isolation orders and perpetuates the lie on CNN. The fascists really, really come out, don't they, right? People like Chris Cuomo, people like at CNN who would say, don't go out, don't listen to Trump, these protests are bad or whatever. Yet they themselves will break all the rules. Chris Cuomo is worth millions of dollars. He's got Hamptons properties. I'm not going to listen to what this guy has to say because he's lying. I said, why are you guys still pretending Cuomo's isolated? Have I missed your apology or correction? Here is a dude. This is a ex-New York Times Mashable. He's the editor-in-chief at Cheddar, Jim Roberts. He tweets, coronavirus update with tacit approval of Donald Trump. Texas protesters plan You Can't Close America rally. Rally will violate GOP governor's stay-at-home order. State police say they will take appropriate enforcement actions. You mean to tell me these protesters are also protesting the Republican governor lockdown orders and that Trump is in defiance by supporting these people with the Republican governors? Sounds an awful lot like Trump is not a fascist. He says Jacksonville beach packed even as Florida coronavirus death toll hits record because the people don't want to be locked up. And these journalists that are coming out and either pretending that they are, like CNN, or saying that we should be, these are people who have money right now. But I'll tell you what, it's not about protests. The protests are a lie. The protests are real. They exist. But the lie is these media companies acting like they're outraged about it. No, you're not, because the LA freeway was jammed with tons of people. And it's been tweeted about quite a bit, but no one's saying, what are these morons doing? It's the protesters. Now, I think it was Ben Shapiro who tweeted something like, the protesters should at least wear masks and social distance. Well, in Michigan, they did that. They were in their cars. Not everyone did. He's right, though. You probably should. People lined up in their cars, created a traffic jam, and that was a clever way of maintaining social distancing and keeping your doors and everything, windows rolled up, and protesting. So right now, I'll tell you what. Donald Trump says people want to get back to work. I'm willing to bet he's right. I'm willing to bet the polls are wrong. But it could just be that most of the people who are saying we don't want things to reopen don't want to go outside. And if 20% of the people, 30% of the people do want things to reopen, they're going to go outside. Then you're going to see the beaches packed. You're going to see protests. You're going to see people driving on the freeway. No one's going to care about your rules anymore because you can't arrest everyone. And that's the end of it. It doesn't matter what you think should happen. It matters what the people will do. And the journalists can screech and cry all day and night. But if the people just defy these orders, well, too bad. You can't stop them. Just the way it is. You can try. It won't work. We'll see how things play out. I'll stick around. The next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.